The New York Islanders once again control their own destiny as they got all the help they needed on Tuesday night. But are they good enough to finish the job? We have a full preview of tonight's game against the Canadiens and a whole lot more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Islanders at your favorite podcatcher and or on YouTube so you can get the latest episode anytime it drops. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL, one word, for $20 off your first purchase. We have got so much to get to on today's show. Great news for the Islanders, but first, if you've got something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future show, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnIsles. And you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at IceWars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. And I am live tweeting during every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. And we'll keep you going. Great to interact with Islander fans, game time or anytime. And boy, tonight is going to be a big, big night for this franchise. Why? Well, here's the situation. On Tuesday, the New Jersey Devils defeated the Buffalo Sabres 6-2, eliminating the Sabres from wild card contention. Then, in an even bigger shock, because, New Jersey at home over Buffalo, not a surprise, but the Chicago Blackhawks on the road in Pittsburgh manhandle the Pittsburgh Penguins 5-2 the final, but a couple of those goals empty netters. But still, the Blackhawks beat the Penguins, and the Islanders now need 1 point tonight against the Montreal Canadiens to guarantee themselves a playoff berth. And they can still be the first wild card if the Islanders beat Montreal and then Florida loses their season finale. And I'll tell you, this is pretty big for the New York Islanders. Thursday is Florida's last game, and it is against the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, New Jersey will be playing Washington at the same time Thursday night, and basically the 1 point separates those two teams. So Carolina has incentive to play well and to win this game against Florida. And the Islanders may even be the first wild card if they can win and Carolina beats Florida. But right now, Pittsburgh not eliminated, but the Islanders just need a point tonight in order to clinch a playoff spot. 2 points tonight and a Florida regulation loss, and the Islanders would be in the driver's seat for the first wild card. So it's a rebirth, another opportunity. And, I did say on the podcast yesterday and even before yesterday, all three of these teams that are battling for the two wild cards are inconsistent. And we saw the Islanders be inconsistent. We saw Pittsburgh do much the same, if not worse, going up against a Chicago team that's, 30th or 31st in the league in points right now. And losing at home if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins to give the Islanders some more hope. And that is very good news. So 2 points, and the Islanders are the first wild card if Florida doesn't win their season finale, and 1 point, and the Islanders clinch a playoff spot. Big, big game now coming up. Now, wanted to quickly get to a couple of emails that people have sent in. This one from Christopher in the Bronx, who asks, even if we become the 8th seed, why are so many Islanders fans afraid or scared of facing Boston? Yes, I know they're good, but they're not immortal and unstoppable. Well, Christopher, you're right. They're not unstoppable. They have set a record for most wins in a season. They have 133 points so far in 81 games with 1 game left on their schedule. They've won 7 in a row. You sort of look at the statistics, and they're second in the league in goals for, first in goals against, 11th on the power play, and they have the league's best penalty kill. Look, you got to give Boston a healthy amount of respect. They may be the only team in the league with a better goaltender than the Islanders have. I think realistically, it is safe to say that Linus Ullmark will win the Vezina Trophy, and most likely that the Islanders, Ilya Sorokin, will be one of the 3 finalists. But I'll tell you, Boston is good. They would be a prohibitive favorite against the Islanders if the Islanders have to face them in the first round of the playoffs, but they're not unbeatable. No team is, and there are more upsets in the Stanley Cup playoffs than in the playoffs of any other sport. So lots at stake here. But look, let's be honest. I'd rather play Carolina or the Devils than Boston if we can help it. But the most important thing, and the first thing the Islanders need to do, is to win and get in. And after that, you start worrying about, okay, who are we going to face? That is going to be sort of the next question. Have another email question from Craig, but Craig, I'm going to wait one more day and answer your question on tomorrow's show, just because I think the outcome of tomorrow's game will affect the way I answer the question. So I want to thank Christopher and Craig for their questions, but going to get to Craig's on tomorrow's show. And again, if you have a question you'd like to ask, feel free to email and send it in, and I'll be happy to answer it tomorrow or Friday or really as soon as possible. But, you know, getting back to Boston, another reason you don't want to face them. What's their home record? 34-4-3. They are almost unbeatable in Boston. And obviously, if you're the wild card team playing Boston, you've got to win at least 1 game in Boston to win the series. They're also 38-2 on the road. They've won 7 straight, won 9 out of their last 10. You know, unbeatable? No, they are not. But it would be very, very difficult for this Islanders team to pull off the upset. And hopefully that is something they would do if they have to face the Boston Bruins. We have got a lot more to get to on this episode of the show. We will have our weekly farm report, and we will preview tonight's essential game against the Montreal Canadiens. We've got all that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's one word, LOCKEDONNHL, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're going to do the farm report first, then we'll get to the game preview for the big match tonight against the Habs. And look, not a good week for the Bridgeport Islanders. They lose both of the games that they played and have been eliminated from AHL playoff competition. So essentially, they lose their first game last week back on April 7th to the Hartford Wolfpack. Final score in that one was 6-2. And, that really put Bridgeport in the hole, and they were just not able to recover. Arno Durando extended his point streak to 4 games. He has 6 assists, setting up a goal by Kyle McLean, Vincent Savigny, the other goal, but it wasn't enough. And then on April 8th, Saturday, the Islanders crushed by the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins by a final score of 8-2. They gave up 5 goals in the second period. And when Hartford and Lehigh Valley both won, Bridgeport was mathematically eliminated from the AHL playoffs. Andy Andreoff got his 34th goal of the year. William Dufour also scored. Corey Schneider, 18 saves before being relieved by Jakub Skarek, but neither of the goalies played exceptionally well, and both and the team just played poorly on defense in front of both goalies, and that was certainly a big disappointment. So Bridgeport now locked into 7th place in the Atlantic Division with 3 games left on the schedule. They have 72 points. They are still 3 games above 500, but it's just not going to be enough to get them into a playoff spot. Chris Terry more or less has locked up the scoring lead for the team with 68 points. He also leads the team with 45 assists. Andy Andreoff, 34 goals. Chris Terry, 23, is next on the team. Andreoff has 60 points. Ruslan Iskakov, 50 points in 66 games, 17 of those goals. And Arno Durando, 19 goals and 49 points. He could get to the 20-goal mark. William Dufour has 21. Dennis Chalowski still leading all defensemen with 36 points. 35 of them are assists. He's 1 point ahead of Samuel Bolduc, who is now, of course, up with the big club. Goaltending-wise, Corey Schneider, his goals against average now at 3. So that has unfortunately been going up in recent weeks. His record, 18-11-3, the 9-11 save percentage. And Jakub Skarek, a 3.33 goals against average, 14-15-3 on the year, and an 8.93 save percentage. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think the Islanders have seen enough progress from Jakub Skarek to say that he is a legitimate prospect anymore. This season, I think, really hurt his development, and the Islanders are going to need to find another goaltender. If they don't re-sign Semyon Varlamov, they'll need another goalie in the system who would be considered a prospect. Now, we talked about all the tryout players that the Islanders have signed, including Matthew Maggio, but it's going to be just these last 3 games on the schedule before it's all over. That's tonight at home against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern time start in Bridgeport. The home finale, April 14th, that's Friday, versus the Hershey Bears. That's also a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. And then the last game of the season for Bridgeport Saturday at 7:05 Eastern Time, a road game against the Providence Bruins. And look, Islander fans, hopefully we'll see something from some of these players on tryouts that'll get a chance to get some professional action and make an impression on the coaching staff and management and scouts. And we'll see whether any of them end up with the team again for the season. But right now, just a disappointing finish for the Bridgeport Islanders. And, it's not that there aren't bright spots. They certainly have made some progress this year. Their record certainly better than it was a year ago for most of the season. And we have seen some solid play from some of the younger players, and that is an encouraging thing. A lot of injuries affected Bridgeport, but look, 3 players who have made an impact in their first year: William Dufour, Ruslan Iskakov, Vincent Savigny, and hopefully we get more from these guys, and that at least Dufour and Iskakov should see some long looks in training camp next year for the big club. I know a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of viewers and listeners to this show have been pushing for Iskakov to get called up. I don't think, they weren't going to do it this year. He may be called up for the playoffs if the Islanders make it, and that, I think, is sort of the big key. Now that we have, Bridgeport not going to the playoffs, one thing we can be sure of, that a number of players from the Bridgeport Islanders will get called up if the New York Islanders make the playoffs. They'll almost certainly be Black Aces riding the pine, watching the game from the press box, but even that gives them some valuable experience. A little quote from head coach Brent Thompson on Iskakov. He definitely started the season with a bang. He was getting a lot of goals, assists, creating offense. As the season wore on, there was a span where he had to learn his players around him better, more give and goes, and a little more consistency in his game. Right now, he's playing hard, making better decisions with the puck and using his teammates better. So hopefully the Islanders will be pleased with his progress, and we'll see what he can do in training camp next year. We've got more to get to on today's show. We will have a preview of tonight's important game against the Montreal Canadiens. A point, and they're in the playoffs. But can the Islanders come through and get that point? We'll have a full preview of that game, plus our Islanders' birthday of the day, still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. So tonight at the UBS Arena, for all the marbles, win and you're in. Islanders and the Canadiens. And Montreal, as we know, not one of the better teams in the league this year. They have 2 games left on the schedule. They are 12 games below 500, 31, 43, and 6, 68 points in 80 games. And look, this is a rebuilding year for Montreal. We know that. They are not throwing in the towel in the sense that they have won 4 of their last 10. They've only lost 1 game in a row, but they're not exactly a team you could take completely lightly, but they're not a team that would be considered even good at this point. But look, the Islanders have played them twice, and both games were 1-goal games. Islanders winning 2-1 in January 14th at UBS Arena, and losing 4-3 in overtime Saturday, February 11th up in Montreal. So if the Islanders think they can take them lightly, they've got another thing coming. But look, the Habs are 26th in the league in goals scored, 29th in goals against. Their power play, 28th in the league, and their penalty kill next to last, 31st in the league. So the Islanders maybe, just maybe, can do a little something on the power play against the Montreal Canadiens. We hope And, we'll see what ends up happening with that. And look, Montreal, one thing we do know, there are some talented players on this team. Nick Suzuki, 24 goals, 64 points. He has 26 points more than any other player on the roster. Cole Caulfield leads the team with 26 goals, but right now he is not on the active roster. He's on the IR. So that gives you an idea of, the lack of goal scoring on this team. Only one other player with 20 or more goals, and that's Josh Anderson. He has 21 goals and 32 points on the season. We look at the line combinations for the Canadiens in their last game. Nick Suzuki on the top line with Raphael Harvey-Pinard to his left, Joel Armia to his right. The second line, Jonathan Drouin, Dennis Gurianov, and Brendan Gallagher. Chris Tierney, Mike Hoffman, and Rem Pitlick are the third line. And then Jake Evans, Michael Pezzetta, and Jesse Ilonen are the fourth line. Michael Matheson and Jonathan Kovacevic, are the top defense pair. Joel Edmondson and Chris Weidman are the second pair. And Corey Schooneman and Justin Barron are the third defensive pair. The goaltenders, Sam Montembeault and Caden Primo. But you look at this IR list and the injury list, it's extensive. Cole Caulfield on IR. Arbor Zekov on IR. Sean Monahan on IR. Yorev Slavkovsky on IR. Christian Dvorak, Josh Anderson, Kirby Dock, and Jordan Harris. The first three are out. Harris listed as day-to-day. So, look, the Islanders are at home. They have a second chance, which maybe they didn't deserve. And now there are no excuses for this team not to get into the postseason. And I'll say this. There will be, or I'll rephrase, there should be some major changes coming down the pike if this team can't at least get a point in this game in order to get the team to the playoffs. 1 point against the last place team in the Atlantic Division gets the Islanders into the playoffs. So that's it. 1 point and the Islanders clinch a playoff berth. 2 points in regulation, a regulation win and a Florida loss, even if it's an overtime or shootout loss, and the Islanders are the top wild card. So now, here's the other thing, though. If the Islanders win in overtime or in a shootout, and then Florida gets 1 point, Florida has the tiebreaker, and they would be the top wild card over the Islanders. If the Islanders lose, they could still make the playoffs if Pittsburgh loses against Columbus. But if Pittsburgh wins or gets even 1 point against Columbus, the Islanders would be going home. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And this is a player I always liked. But again, a day early. So Thursday will be the 51st birthday of former Islanders winger Mariusz Czerkawski, the native of Radomsko, Poland. Not too many Polish players in the NHL, but Czerkawski, one of them. Drafted by the Bruins in the 5th round back in 1991. Made his NHL debut briefly in 93-94 with Boston. Then went on to the Oilers and became an Islander in the 97-98 season. Stayed with the team through 2001-2002. Had back-to-back 30-goal campaigns for the Isles in 1999, 2000, and again in 2000 and 2001. His best season, easily 99-2000, 35 goals, 70 points. Those were both career highs. After leaving the Islanders, played for Toronto and then briefly Boston again before finishing up his career in Switzerland. 745 career NHL games for Mariusz Czerkawski, 215 goals, 435 points, 274 penalty minutes. He was a guy who could put the puck in the net, add 8 goals, 15 points in 42 playoff games. One of his more memorable games with the Islanders, November 27th, 2001, at the Nassau Coliseum. Islanders facing the Washington Capitals. A hat trick for Mariusz Czerkawski in 4 shots on goal, one of them on the power play. And the Islanders and Washington Capitals finished in a 5-5 tie. Craig Billington was the goalie for the Caps, while Chris Osgood was the goalie for the Islanders. So again, happy birthday to Mariusz Czerkawski. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thanks for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. Now make your second listen game to game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every contest from across the National Hockey League with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Hopefully, we'll have good news on tomorrow's show. We'll be back with our key takeaways, and hopefully we will know at least what seed the Islanders are likely to be, but we'll certainly know whether or not the Islanders are likely to be in the playoffs or not. And this team, you know what? You don't always get a second chance. If they blow this second chance again, they don't even deserve to come close to the playoffs, especially at home against a struggling team like the Canadiens. No disrespect to Montreal, but this is a game the Islanders should win and must win in order to keep some self-respect. So until tomorrow, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and let's go Islanders.